plata, or plomo. These words are now an iconic pop culture reference thanks to Narcos, but the story of the man who quoted this is a story full of violence, bloodshed, and bullets. Dubbed as the king of cocaine, Pablo Escobar was a drug lord from Colombia and is one of the top names amongst the most richest criminals of all time, with barrels filled with shitloads of cash found every now and then standing as a testimony to it. Pablo Escobar was the main man behind more than 80% of cocaine that was smuggled into the US soils at the height of his reign as a drug lord. How did a poor chap from the streets of Medellin in Colombia become the most dreaded gangster ever? From owning a theme park with a private zoo, to killing ministers and getting away with it, and to being shot by the DEA and the Colombian anti-narco search block squad on a rooftop. This is the violent and gory story of the king of cocaine. This is the story of Pablo Escobar. Hello to all the curious bees out there. Now sit back, relax, and get ready to immerse yourself in the story of El Patron, Pablo Escobar. Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria was born on the 1st of December in the year 1949. He was the third child born to Abel Escobar and Hermelda Escobar. Pablo as a kid grew up in poverty while his parents were struggling to make ends meet. Pablo was also never good at studies and neither interested in it. He aspired to become a lawyer because he thought that the degree would lay a foundation for him to enter politics and one day become the president of his country, Colombia. He loved playing football with his friends from a very young age and eventually dropped out of high school. He, however, forged his high school diploma and managed to enter a law school, but he eventually had to drop out as he could not afford it. Having been raised in a poor family, Pablo was hungry to get his hands on cash and had great ambitions to get rich as quickly as possible. He wanted to live life big right from an early age, and to fulfill his dreams, Pablo took crime as his profession. Starting his criminal career by stealing cars, dismantling the parts and selling them, he then formed a street gang to systematically steal cars and mint money out of it. Pablo then started to make a name for himself in the criminal world. While he was busy making money through crime at a very young age, Pablo was also smart enough to understand and make the most out of Colombia's corrupt system by bribing authorities to do hassle-free business. Escobar then started to venture into the world of extortion by kidnapping big shots for a ransom. This was done to keep fear elite society had when it came to him intact. After such incidents, Pablo Escobar became a popular name throughout the city of Medellin. With a thirst to live a lavish lifestyle and earn tons of money, Pablo Escobar started scouting for more profitable ventures and turned to smuggling. Initially, he smuggled in various cigarettes and liquor from abroad into his country. Now that was the time cocaine started to become a popular drug amongst the American youth, and thus business started to boom for cartels in Colombia. Cocaine, being a drug extracted from the coca plants, could be produced only in certain regions of South America since it had the perfect conditions best suited for it to grow, with Colombia being the best of all other South American countries. Unlike narcotics like marijuana or heroin, cocaine cannot be produced anywhere outside South American countries. Pablo Escobar saw an opportunity that he wouldn't miss. He then assassinated Fabio Restrepo, one of the first cocaine cartel leaders in Colombia, and captured his well-established market. He then started to smuggle cocaine into the US, which was the biggest consumer of cocaine in small quantities. In the year 1976, Pablo Escobar was caught with about 40 kilograms of cocaine while attempting to smuggle it and was also arrested for it. The infamous mugshot of Pablo Escobar smiling when the police were taking a photograph of him for his criminal profile was also taken during this instance. However, Escobar managed to get away after bribing the judges and was scot-free. He then started to grease the palms of officials at every level in the government, and those who resisted taking bribes were gunned down by his gangsters. In Pablo Escobar's reign, the government was given two options by him: plata or plomo, which means silver or lead. Silver referring to bribes, and plomo, which meant lead, referring to bullets. Pablo Escobar and his colleagues started funding two major political parties of Colombia to carry out their operations without inviting trouble. Pablo Escobar then felt that many drug barons were operating from Medellin and were busy fighting between themselves, and quickly realized that this ain't good for business. He soon arranged a meeting with the major drug barons of Medellin and proposed that they form a cartel and stand by each other. And thus, the Medellin cartel was formed and was headed by Pablo Escobar. Gradually, the demand for cocaine started to increase in the USA, with the drug being a favorite amongst the elites and the rich in America. Now, the thing about cocaine is that once you use it, there's almost no going back. The chances of getting addicted to coke is very high compared to other narcotics. So once a person in America had a taste of it and snorted it once, it is more likely that he would demand more of it in the near future. This is how the demand for cocaine increased in America. Business was skyrocketing for the Medellin cartel, and Pablo Escobar was able to find new narco routes for transporting cocaine, and even bought a huge piece of land in the Bahamas as a transshipment point to refuel the planes carrying the drug, and a huge warehouse to store the drug. The Drug Enforcement Agency of America, or the DEA, in the 80s were only focused on marijuana and were vehemently seizing them and making arrests. They were not ready for this monster called cocaine. When the DEA started noticing the rise of a new drug on the streets and saw the effect it had on people, the DEA decided it was time to act on it. They soon started making seizures of cocaine and started investigating about the mastermind behind it. The DEA then realized that most of it was coming from Colombia, and upon seeing the effect of cocaine on young users in America, and most importantly, the billions of US dollars finding its way to Colombia, decided to send some of its agents to the country and work with the special forces there and nab the mastermind behind the drug trade. Pablo Escobar, on the other hand, was getting so much cash that he ran out of ways to spend it. He eventually created a huge estate called the Hacienda Napoles, comprising of a theme park for his kids, a zoo with exotic birds and animals including hippos, and sprawling mansions. The hippos have started to multiply now, and there are almost 40 hippos now in Medellin. The hippos are called Pablo's hippos or narco hippos, and are a major tourist attraction for people willing to do touring in Colombia, tracing important places that were once associated with the drug lord Pablo Escobar. Anyways, even after literally building an amusement park for himself, Pablo could not find places to store his money. He soon hired a set of people to mark and store barrels of cashes underground across Medellin, and some of them are being randomly found by farmers till date. Pablo Escobar also started doing a lot of philanthropical work in Colombia by building football grounds for kids, building schools and hospitals, especially in the poverty-ridden slums of Colombia, and garnered the support of people and earned his status as a Robin Hood amongst the poor. In the year 1982, Pablo Escobar managed to enter the Colombian Congress, and some high-ranking politicians were not happy about a drug lord entering the Congress. The late Minister of Justice, Rodrigo Lara Bonilla, who was an important person in the Congress during Pablo's time, accused him of being a drug lord and a criminal who was involved in cold-blooded murders, and started to fiercely oppose him. This embarrassed Pablo, as the Congress was in a very delicate position where they could neither throw him out of the party nor oppose their own minister. Pablo was later expelled from the party, and out of humiliation, he decided to retire from politics. But Pablo Escobar, being Pablo Escobar, is said to have planned the assassination of Rodrigo Lara Bonilla, who died in a shootout 3 months after he announced his retirement. but an incident which would transform Pablo Escobar from being a narco drug lord to a narco terrorist was about to happen. He decided to assassinate Luis Carlos Gallan, who expelled him from the party. Escobar planted a bomb on Avianca flight number 203, in which Luis Carlos Gallan was scheduled to travel in. Lucky for him, he missed the flight that day and survived. But the bomb exploded and it killed several people, including Americans who were traveling. This further aggravated America, who decided to further speed up their hunt for Escobar. This incident turned Pablo Escobar from a narco to a narco terrorist. The Colombian government were under immense pressure to arrest Escobar and extradite him to the US. But several people in the government had blood on their hands too. They were enjoying the perks of being on Pablo's payroll, so they decided to negotiate with Escobar. Escobar agreed to surrender, but under conditions that will make the word prison sound like a luxury retreat. He agreed to surrender, but demanded that he will build a prison for himself and that no officials could enter it, and that he would remain confined in the space until the end of his serving time. Pablo then built the La Cathedral, with so many luxurious amenities that are nothing short of a star hotel. Several swimming pools, soccer fields, a separate game room, multiple bars and escort girls to keep company, and also surrounded by his men 24/7. Escobar carried on his operation with seamlessly while he was in the La Cathedral, and this did not go down well with the US, who persuaded Colombia to move Pablo to a proper jail and not a luxury resort. Colombia decided to do just that and went all in to arrest Pablo Escobar in the La Cathedral. But Escobar received a tip-off much earlier and escaped the La Cathedral on 22nd July 1992. Escobar continued to live under hiding for almost a year, with him meeting his family only occasionally. The government was constantly tapping his phone and were looking for the right opportunity to nab him. The rival of the Medellin cartel, the Cali cartel, were also moving against him by expanding their business. Escobar, while in hiding, could not risk throwing parties or live lavishly. He grew a long beard and was starting to look almost homeless, with only a handful of his men to keep him company. His end was just right around the corner. On 2nd December 1993, Escobar made a phone call to his wife and son and spoke with them. He knew that his phones were tapped, but still did not hesitate to make the call. This brought up the question of whether Escobar grew tired of his miserable life in hiding and was prepared to die. However, the search block of Colombia along with the DEA were able to locate his house in the middle-class locality of Medellin. The forces went all in and a shootout ensued, and Escobar, with a pistol on his hand, ran on the roof of the house. The forces, who had a clean view, gunned him down on the roof. There he was, the richest criminal and the most powerful drug lord, shot dead on the roof of a middle-class house, away from all the luxuries he had enjoyed for the past 2 decades. The DEA agents and the Colombian search block enjoyed taking photographs with the dead corpse of Pablo Escobar and symbolically announced their triumph over the drug lord who haunted them for so many years and killed so many of their colleagues. But Pablo's death also stirred a lot of controversies. After so many years, especially when his son Juan Escobar once told that his father was certainly not shot by the DEA or the search block, and that he had definitely shot himself to death. To validate this claim of his, he narrated an incident from his childhood when his father told him how to commit suicide using a gun in case the authorities round him up in the near future and there is no scope for escaping. Juan Pablo describes that the shot that killed Pablo was exactly how his father taught him to shoot oneself, and firmly believes that his father committed suicide as he was tired of running, and that his father hated the idea of surrendering to the enemy or get killed by them. And thus he tries to validate his claim that his father committed suicide and that he was not shot as the authorities claim. But with having said that, the Cali cartel, who were the rival of the Medellin cartel, expanded their business and took monopoly of cocaine manufacturing and distribution and made their fortune as well. Cocaine to this day is still produced in the jungles of Colombia by cartels, and the drug keeps its high intact till date. And that was the story of El Patron Pablo Escobar, the richest criminal the world has ever witnessed. And that's it for today's episode of The Beast Show. Keep the fire of curiosity burning inside of you for eternity, and peace out. See you in another interesting video.